Grand Rising family. This is Dr. Kia Pruitt, and it is Saturday, July the 5th, 2025. It's about 7:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and it's the day after the 4th of July or Independence Day. Do you guys know what I've noticed in my last few years of my development, I would say, in the last 10 years or so, is that increasingly we've become isolated. We've become so isolated from family that now more than ever, people are experiencing being very, very lonely. And I know we have social media, we have Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, all of these things to keep us occupied, and we get dopamine fixes. And I know areas of our brain lights up and we feel satisfied, but that's only temporal. It's only temporary and it doesn't really last. And it's not quite as meaningful and as impactful as social relationships right inside your home or your neighborhood or your community. And it seems like we've gotten further and further away from that. So as I've spent time away from social media, not doing as many podcasts, not scrolling, what I notice is that there is nobody outside. Um, my family members are, kind of busy doing their things, or if it in their isolated bubble, just like I am, and feeling quite lonely. So I'm wondering what we can do as a human family to bring back community. I know you have groups and you have community online and you have private groups and memberships and all that. And while that's nice, we're not really bonding in a way that is helping us develop. We're not really bonding in a way that's nourishing our soul. So temporarily we get a fix. We get to hear about the news. We get to see what's going on in somebody else's life. But what are we doing to fulfill our own life purpose or our needs? Do you know, outside of food and water and having shelter or a roof over your home, the most important thing is human relationships. The most important thing in life is not only procreating and loving each other, but forming a bond so that we could help each other and help each other become and feel secure innately or within our soul, and help build a society where we're all thriving. For example, if nobody's outside farming and growing fruits and vegetables, we're depending on a government or something outside of our community to do agriculture. They don't know your genetic makeup. They don't know what your bloodline. They don't even have to care. So if it's some other country or some other government or some other entity creating your food source, they can put in your food anything that they desire because they're about mass production and making money. Whereas if you're creating food, if your family is doing agriculture, if people in your community, in your bloodline, or even in your neighborhood is manufacturing the food, then they're going to be more inclined to include foods that will feed your bloodline, food that will nourish you, food that will just generally make sure you're healthy. So overall, what I'm saying is, wow, social media is good, and we want to look for our favorite producer or our favorite um, newscaster or broadcaster or social person, social media influencer to give us information. A lot of that information is inside us, and they're inside of our family members, our neighbors, our community members. Typically people live communal in a place where people think like them or people have the same ideologies. At least that's the way it used to be. So if your community is formed or comprised of people who think like you, or your family members, or people who have your same ideologies, then you're more likely to produce what's in the best interest of the community and the people. But what I witness is that family members live so far apart that the community is not even comprised of the family. Neighbors are people we don't even know. And it's, for me, it's a challenge, and it's something that we need to work on. So what I would encourage us to do is to take some time off social media, take a step back from even being a social media influencer, and influence the family. And before you can influence the family, or before I can influence the family, get some own inner healing. Because whereas I'm considered a highly thriving person, and I'm considered somebody that's socially adjusted, and I'm healthy, and I, give a lot of people encouragement, one of the things that I struggle with is bonding, not necessarily with my children or my grandchildren or anything like that, but pair bonding. And what I realized just doing some work on myself is that I never had a bond with my father because my mom and dad weren't together. And although I spent time living with my paternal grandparents, dad still wasn't around because, of his own issues. He struggled with addictions. So he was in and out of uh, facilities getting the care he needed. And, sometimes his addiction led to him getting involved in activities that he should not have. So then he had to pay his debt to society by spending time in those facilities. And while he was dealing with his issues, and it was a struggle for him, and I understand and overstand that, still there was a void in a father-daughter bond. And so when it came to pair bonding, with my first relationship with my first husband, it was actually great because we grew up together. But when we had challenges, and then we not grew apart, but decided to be apart for that time, it still left me vulnerable. And so, of course, later on in life, when he got sick, we got back together, and not even back together. Back together is more like our families came back together. But still, that longing that was inside of me to pair bond, or to have that shelter and protection from a father figure, it was lacking. And so growing up, you know when it came time to form relationships or even consider pair bonding relationships, I avoided them because I didn't want that the person to leave. And it's interesting because when you're an avoidant, you fear that another person is going to leave, so you end up leaving. So what I'm saying is, because of the different things that we've gone through as a human population and human society, or whatever you want to call us, human species, we are now so detached that we're isolated, we're lonely, we don't produce like we used to, and our children are suffering as well as we're suffering. You had these governments and beings that controlled the human population for so long that we don't even realize that we've been controlled and the detriment from the control. So, how did they control us? They controlled us by putting drugs into our communities so that our fathers and mothers can get addicted to these drugs and not be there to help raise us and nurture us into becoming healthy individuals. So, you have drugs in the community, you have poison in the food so that you can't even function on a high level because the food is not really the food that's complementary to your bloodline or complementary to your genetics. So you have food that's poison, you have air that's poison. So the very air that you breathe is not fully oxidized, is not helping you, is not helping you develop your brain because you have chemicals in the air. The water that we drink has become so poisoned that it's not even hydrating us. Water is not even hydrating us, and that's the purpose, one of the purposes of water. So all of these poisons that have been put in our environments, our foods, our bodies now have reached such a high level that we're not thriving the way we should be thriving. Additionally, you have music that is poisoned. You have frequencies that are being injected into our environments that cause us to be depressed and oppressed and sad. Uh, you have not only the music, but the movies, the lyrics, the rhetoric, even online. with through social media influencers, the rhetoric through the mainstream media that's been part of our programming to keep us isolated as a human species, to hate each other. You have rhetoric in social institutions like churches and mosques and religious organizations that divide us. We know now all of the problems, but what are the solutions? So another problem is AI technology. Although it's helping us to mass produce and do certain things on one level, you don't even have to use your brain anymore to figure out certain things. And so I wonder, having understood and understood all of these issues and problems, what we can do to resolve it. I would like to hear from you in the comment section, because this is a recording. I don't want to go live today. What do you think in the comment section we can do to bring us back together as a family, as a community, and as a society, where we control our own food, our social institutions, we control our monetary system, we control whether we decide to barter or not, we control our air, our water. How can we get back to that? Do we need to figure out how to dig for water and get water from a well? Do we need to research how we can find heirloom seeds? Do we need to come back together and form unions where both the mom and dad are raising the children? Because we keep hearing rhetoric like a child doesn't need his father till it's 2 years or older or something like that. But the father needs to be involved in the child's life from the time the child is conceived, as well as the mother. Because if you don't do that, you'll develop unhealthy attachment styles, so that when you grow up and you become an adult, it will be very difficult to pair bond. It will be very difficult to get into relationships where you will mate and have children. It will be very difficult to even work together communally to grow a garden if you don't have both the father and the mother involved in raising the children. So what I realize is that I have not been as involved even as I need to be in the development of the children and grandchildren in our community, in my family and community. But it takes a village. It's not just one person that can do that. It takes the mom, the dad, the grandparents, the aunts, the uncles, the cousins, and it takes us being more concerned about the whole than we are as just the individual. So look at how society, governments, and rule and control, whatever beings are controlling humans, look at what they've done to divide us. And think about how we can come together. Okay. It's all going to start with me as an individual, you as an individual, to make whole or fix the damage that has been done and become healthier from an individual standpoint. We are trying to eat more healthily. We're trying to walk, do exercise, drink more healthy liquids. But additionally, you need relationships. You need people. We need to be communal. Speaking on a computer has its benefits, but what are our relationships like outside of the computer? What are relationships like outside of scrolling? What I've noticed, since I don't have any apps on my phone anymore, I got a new phone, I would not download any more apps, is that I'm really at a, how do you say, when you scale away and you look at deep in my soul, I'm very lonely. If I'm not talking to you all and my grandchildren are away, visiting others, I'm very lonely. Why is that? And the way I would fulfill the emptiness, because family members are all separated, they've all moved apart, is by talking to you online. But where I get benefit from that, and I love you all, you're amazing, I'm wondering how I'm being affected, the children are being affected, people that have moved away, how are they being affected? How is everybody being affected by us being in the house on our cellular devices and on the computer? Yesterday was the 4th of July, and I'm walking outside. There's hardly nobody outside, not even in the yards. So I just walked my entire neighborhood, like 3 or 4 times yesterday. I saw 2 homes where there were people outside in the backyard. And I couldn't really see the yard because they had, fences that were high, but I could hear giggling, children's laughter. I could hear 2 homes in an entire neighborhood. And I'm thinking, where are the cookouts? And I asked my son, I said, are Black families the only families that do cookouts during the 4th of July? And I'm thinking, no, that can't be the case, because even other families, would go outside. I live in a predominantly white community, some Hispanics, but predominantly white. And I'm like, I know that Caucasian people on the 4th of July used to go outside and, do fireworks and some kind of celebration and some type of communal thing. But right before COVID, I started noticing that people less and less are spending time outside. But during COVID, you saw people that were forced to stay inside for 2 or 3 years. And now here we are in 2025, and you don't even see people outside anymore, or rarely. And I'm talking about outside congregating, where children are literally playing in the grass, playing hide and go seek, hopscotch, jump rope, people walking up and down the neighborhoods. And when I was growing up, you would see the young ladies on the porch braiding people's hair. I don't see that anymore. We would see the guys outside working out. They didn't go to the gym. They had gym equipment right outside. And this is not in it's not a poverty stricken neighborhood. I'm talking about when I was with my grandparents. They were all homeowners and business people, and with mostly intact families. The grandparents, now the children, my father's and mother's generation, that must have been a crack epidemic. I think the 70s was the heroin epidemic. I'm a 60s. I was born in the 60s. 70s was the heroin epidemic. The 80s was the crack epidemic. The parents were still, my grandparents were still business owners, or some of them were in retirement. They are all homeowners in the whole neighborhood, the whole community. They were all professionals. Even the ones that weren't business owners were professionals. But their children were struggling with drugs, and their grandchildren, we were growing up watching this. So we got to see the children, our parents, some of them struggling with drugs, or some of them struggling being single parent household, but our grandparents were still intact, the mother and the father, and the aunts and uncles still around. When we were growing up, there were children outside playing. There was music in the neighborhood, relatively, healthy music about love. That was before hip hop came out, but their lyrics that I don't approve of. But you saw store owners that were people you knew, that were your aunts and uncles' age, your parents' age. They were the store owners. The garbage collector in my neighborhood, the garbage owner, the guy who took away all the garbage from the neighborhood, he was a brother. He lived in Shaker Heights. He lived right outside of my community, but we knew him, or we knew his son, because his son would come and play with us. People were outside gardening. My grandmother had a garden in the backyard. We were outside helping her garden. Then there was a communal garden across the street. Our school, our elementary school was right across the street from my grandma's house. Behind the school, and part of the school property, was a whole huge area of land where everybody in the neighborhood grew vegetables and fruits together. So you had a garden in your backyard, and you had a community garden. People were outside gardening. You saw women outside hanging clothes. And even my uncles would be outside hanging the clothes, helping grandma. But that was happening all over the neighborhood. Gardening, children playing, uncles working out, lifting in the neighborhood, people cutting hair right on the porch or outside. And sometimes inside, you can go to somebody's home, inside the home, and get your hair done. One of my uncles was a barber. He didn't have a barber's license. You didn't need that. And he didn't have a facility outside the home, because my grandparents had a relatively large home. And the first part of that, when you walk in, the entranceway, it used to be a store. When my parents were coming along, there was a store that my grandparents owned, but the store was no longer operating. But my uncle had a barber shop right in the store area where we had plants and remnants of the store left over, not food in there anymore. But he had an area there where he would cut hair. So people would come there to get their hair done by one uncle. Another uncle was a phenomenal tailor, my Uncle Bobby. Uncle Eddie was the barber. Uncle Bobby was the tailor. People would come get dresses made, clothes, suits made, get things tailored to their body. And my aunts were phenomenal cooks like my grandma. So people would come over to eat from the neighborhood, from other neighborhoods in the community, outside several blocks away. People would come to our house very often, almost every day, but especially on the weekends to eat meals. And my grandmother helped raise countless children in the whole community, such that to this day, some of those people that we grew up with, we call each other cousins, and there's no blood, but we grew up together because our parents helped raise each other's children. And we shared grandparents. We went to church together. We were given certain ideologies, trained together. My grandmother taught all the women in the community and even the boys how to shuck beans, how to shuck corn, how to wash greens and pick greens and cut greens, and how to make cha-cha pickle and pickle foods, and how to can goods, and how to create desserts. And we did everything from scratch. So I know some of those things now because my grandmother taught me. But who's teaching those things when most people are now in front of a computer or a cell phone? Well, I decided I don't want to do that anymore. I don't want to scroll anymore. I don't have anything downloaded on any of those apps on my phone anymore. I think I have WhatsApp because I have a lot of family members or friends that are out of the country, but that might even come off of my phone. You want to communicate with me? You can call me on the phone, or you can write me a letter like they used to do. I told my son, I said, it used to be a time where people would write letters. Well, I told my youngest son that, or take pictures on a camera and mail the pictures. But now everything's downloaded on your phone or your computer. If you lose your Facebook account, all your pictures that you've accumulated over the years are just gone. So I would encourage you to download your pictures on Facebook or from Instagram and on your cellular devices, and create photo albums so you can pass them down to your posterity, your children, your children's children, your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren. Do you know, when I requested a download of all my information on Facebook, I noticed I've been on Facebook from 2005 to 2025. That's 20 years. And whereas I built relationships online, that's 20 years of being online. What could I have done in my own community? And I'm grateful for the relationships that we have. I'm grateful that I was able to share news and teach people about wealth. And now people have silver, people have gold. They know what's going on behind the scenes. They know what the elite are doing, how they're controlling our lives. But what about the family? Pulling away from social media has let me see how lonely I am. It has helped me to see how much I miss jump roping outside, hopscotching with the kids outside. And I do spend time with my grandchildren, but it's just so different from, I spend time with them. Oh, then I got to go make a video. Oh, what else is diverting my attention on a cell phone? Oh, what's going on in the news? What's going on in the children? What's going on in you? What's going on in me? Why are so many of us afraid to have pair bonding relationships? What would happen if we turn off the computer, the television, the cell phone, and actually got a mate right in our neighborhood, in our communities, or build stronger relationships with the opposite sex in our communities? If we start actually literally talking to each other and not being concerned about social media, and what is going on in the world outside of us. A lot of us are afraid or are having problems with pair bonding because we have this illusion of having so many options with dating apps. Remember when you used to choose from the people that you went to high school with, or the people you went to church with, or the people who were right in your neighborhood? Now, with this idea that you can choose from people all over the world, people are not spending time to work on the relationships that's right in front of them. What's going on with me? What's going on with you? What was the relationship like with your mother? Was she nurturing? Was she able to nurture you? Was she so concerned with survival that she didn't have these tools that she needed to nurture you? Okay, how does that impacted you? How can you fix that relationship between you and your mom now? What is the relationship like with you and your dad? Because I keep hearing men need their fathers, men need it. Well, so do girls. We need our fathers too. If we don't have a relationship with our father or father figures, we haven't bonded with father figures, we don't know how to have a pair bond relationship with a mate, a companion. We don't even know how to make that work. We're constantly fighting each other or fighting against each other or running away from each other when really we're lonely. Some of us really desire and need a companion. And for those that absolutely don't need that, they shouldn't be judged. They just don't need it. But there's something they need. What is the relationship like with your mom, your dad, your aunt, your uncle? Where's your grandma? Where's your grandfather? What is the relationship like with them? What is your relationship like with your child? Do you even know your child? Like, really know your child? Do you really overstand the personality of each of your children? Do you know what they're missing? Have you had a conversation with your small child, your middle age, your adolescent child, even your adult child, to see what they're needing? Can you form a bond with them if the bond can be strengthened, or even make the bond stronger with your child, whether they're small, in the womb, a toddler, a teenager, or an adult? But if we take time away from the cell phone and the computer and sit down and have a conversation without those things, without the television on, we'll get to know each other. If we take some time to sit alone and with people, and alone first by yourself, to see what it is that you need, figure it out, and then go build strong relationships with people that are around you, that are in your family or in your neighborhood, in your community, I guarantee you will be happier. So my encouragement for this new era, or this during this time they're calling a reset, global currency reset or human reset or whatever. I know they provided phones and they made everything convenient by putting banks and stuff on your phone and credit cards on your phone and conversations on your phone and dating apps on your phone. What if we reject all of that, or as much as we can? What if we don't download the apps? What if we pull away from social media? What can we build and create? How happier would we be? Let's focus on our me as an individual, what you need. I'll be very, very honest. I realize that I am lonely and I have a hard time pair bonding for whatever reason. I'm not going to make excuses. It most likely stems from childhood and then things that occurred in life. When life situations happened, I may have exited a relationship or the other person may have exited. And those things happen. But how did it affect me? How did it affect you growing up? the things that you encountered, the relationships you had that were thriving and the ones that ended. How did it impact you as an individual? Let's get some healing for that. It would be wonderful to be able to go out and talk to a counselor or somebody else, outside of us. The interesting thing about that is whereas counseling is good, a lot of counselors have been engineered to tell people to cut people off. I'm not so sure that's what the best interest of the human family, to just cut people off. So maybe instead of going to an outsider for help, if that's not what's best for you, we can look for an elder, someone in the family or somebody in the community to talk to, or somebody in your spiritual community. So I would say spend some time alone, processing where you are, how you're thinking, how you're feeling, what type of relationships you would like to cultivate, and meditate and speak to your highest self, or the creator or source, which resides in you. Spend some time alone, figure that out, and then you will be guided to who to call, like an elder or a spiritual advisor or an advisor, to help you figure this out, how you can cure or heal certain parts of you that have been fragmented for whatever reason. And if we can try to do that without, blaming and shaming others, it might be the most healthy way to go about healing. And then once you've healed yourself, let's go and heal our relationships. Everybody has an opinion online about what a man should do, what a woman should do, what a child should do, how to get your ex back, how to divorce, how to remarry, how to mate, how to have sex, how to eat, how to dine, how to talk to your children. Everybody has an opinion, but their opinion may not be what's best for you. What do you think you need? What's healthy for your bloodline, your makeup, your biochemistry, your ancestry? Figure it out. Let's figure it out. And let's start now. Because before we can help the world heal, before we can perfect humanitarian projects and clean the air, clean the water, get money, we have to first start here. How does your soul feel? When you turn off the cell phone, when you turn off the TV, when you don't look at YouTube, when you pull out the plug from the internet and it's just you, what's going on? How do you feel? What are you thinking about? What do you need? What do you need to heal, to make whole and complete? When's the last time you took a walk without music being on? And just listen to the music in nature. That's what my son talked about on the latest podcast we did towards the end of the podcast. Frequencies. He talked about birds singing on high vibrational frequencies and how he would play an instrument in tune with their frequency and they would come and commune with him. The birds, the squirrels, and other animals would just walk up to him because they saw that he was vibrating on their frequency. What would happen if we walked outside without music and just listened to the wind, the leaves blow, the birds chirp, the dogs bark? Do you know how soothing that could feel? Or if you're beside water, listen to the water, the waves clash. Hear the crunch of the grass underneath your feet, or walk along the sand. Simple things like nature, nurture, nurture, same word, that will nurture and nourish your soul. So while I enjoy podcasting, and I've had a great run on social media for 20 years, that's a large part of my life. It's time to step back and focus on what's important. Let's focus on ourselves and the family. Because as my sons have often told me, thriving society is built upon thriving communities. Thriving communities are based and comprised upon thriving families, and a thriving family is based upon a thriving whole you. Communities are just a bunch of families together. Now, have you noticed that it's almost like we don't do the things we used to do? I want to get back to that. I'm going to get back to that. It's going to start with me. So get some healing for yourself if you're not there, and continue to heal, because some of you are already whole, some of you are already healed and complete. Continue to add upon that and enrich your life and nourish your soul. And then focus on outside of you, your companion. Love your companion. If you have one, if you don't, why not get one? Search for one, if that's what you desire. And focus on the two of you without the television being on, without the computer being on, without scrolling online. When I'm out sometimes and I see couples together, the woman and the man are on their vehicles. If the children are around, they're on something. The waitress might be on something. People that aren't waiting tables, in between time, they're scrolling. This was a design to keep us so distracted that whatever beings have enslaved this planet can operate at a higher level because we're too distracted. We don't even know what's happening. And if we know, you get so caught up on social media, you don't even care. And for some of us that are social media so-called influencers, it becomes a trap. You have to keep producing because people depend on you, and you depend on the people, you depend on the income, depend on the information, you depend on the dopamine fix that you get from being online. We're all dependent on each other, but it's coming through a screen. But what about human touch? Do you ever miss being touched? And I'm not talking about superficial touching. I mean, like, will you really spend time and touch each other's soul with your words, with your energy, being right next to each other, and literal physical touch? When's the last time you touched and caressed your grandchild? Pulled them away from the cellular devices and taught them how to sew, how to cook, taught them how to build a car, how to do an oil change. When's the last time you taught your child how to read, your grandchild how to write? When's the last time you sat down with them and read to them? I remember reading books to my children at night. And whereas that served a purpose, even reading a book to your child at night to try to pacify them because you are divorced from the father, it's not going to help 100%. It will aid to giving them something, but a child needs both mom and dad, a father figure and a mother figure, and they need for us to spend time with them. So yes, I read to my children and it served its purpose, but we have to continue on that tradition. Because it's not just about reading words from a book or telling stories. Sometimes I would tell stories, but it's about bonding with your child and your grandchild and the people in your community, because everybody doesn't have the capacity to parent. But those of us that have the capacity and love doing it and are very good at it need to help the children that need that maybe not getting it from their parents, or maybe it's not enough because it takes a village. So We can literally be impacting society right now. We keep talking about humanitarian projects, but what about the people right in our community, the children that need an auntie or an uncle or somebody in the community, a play cousin, to braid their hair, to cut their hair, to read a story to them? So much we could be doing. And it could just start as simple as growing a garden together. It could be a small plot of land. It could be your backyard. Let's grow some tomatoes. And then once we grow those tomatoes, share them with the people in the neighborhood. That's what they used to do when I was growing up. They would grow so many heirloom. Back then it was just called tomatoes. Now it's called heirloom tomatoes. These were organic tomatoes, like the original tomatoes. They would grow so many tomatoes that there would literally be paper bags full of tomatoes sitting on my grandma's back porch in the solarium. This is after she harvested all her tomatoes and her peppers and her cabbages and her ears of corn and some of the carrots. Like, she harvested a lot of vegetables, onions as well. It'd be so much that she would harvest in the backyard and in the community garden that she would have to give them to the people in the neighborhood and to the people at church. So many vegetables. After she would harvest them and then can them and freeze some of them and store some away, and not just the freezer in the kitchen, but there was a freezer in the store area, because we had a store growing up. My grandparents owned a store, and then the freezers on the back porch. She would have so much left over, she had to give them to the neighbors and to the church members. We keep saying we're busy, we're bored, like I was saying all day yesterday, when I could be growing tomatoes. My son's a tailor. I could be asking him to teach me how to do something. I have clothes that are too big now and I'm losing weight. I could ask him to teach me how to make those clothes, adjust those clothes for me. There's a lot we could be doing in the community. Just turn off the cell phone and you'll see how much work we could do for humanity, starting with yourself and your family right now today. So I've challenged myself already. I didn't download the apps on my phone. I'm not going to. I don't want to. I have no desire. I've downloaded all my information and my photos from Facebook because I plan to shut it down. Instagram will be next. They already banned me from TikTok. They banned me from Reddit years ago because I kept talking about gold and silver. They even banned me from the gold and silver Reddit community because I was telling people to buy gold and silver. This was years ago, before this gold rush, this new gold rush. But speaking about gold and silver, if you're interested, get some. If you're not, or you don't have the money, that's okay, because somebody else has it in your community. We've taught enough people to do that. You can get gold backs for $350. Go online, look for where to get gold backs. Your state will now provide gold backs. All coin collectors know now. They've been trained to know that we're moving to a gold and silver standard. So they've been told that they're going to be very busy with people coming to buy silver and gold, people trading gold and silver for the fiat that we have and or for the new currencies that's coming out. So that's not the only thing you can get into, gold and silver. You guys know about that. You know about foreign currencies, because they all will revalue, and that's good because everybody needs money, but we also need food. We also need gardens. We also need educators. We also need spiritual development centers. We also need ancestors to pass down information and knowledge from your lineage and your bloodline and your families down to the younger generations. We also need herbalists. All of you that are good with herbs and trees and plants and all that, you contribute to humanity and to the well-being of your community and society. It's not just about making money or getting gold and silver. That's important. But what can we do right now? Think about what you can do right now. It starts with you. Healing yourself, continuing to make yourself whole, cultivating the areas that are already healed and further developing them is important. Your health is your wealth, so eat well, sleep, get plenty of sleep, drink well, walk. If you can't go to a gym, there was a time we didn't have gyms. I was telling my youngest son that my girlfriends and I, we were having babies at the same time. I got married at 18. Many of them got married, in their early 20s. I got married at 18. The way we would work out was by going walking. We would put our babies in a stroller, or if we were pregnant or with child, and walk. We would also jump rope. We would also do jumping jacks. We would take cans of of vegetables and use the vegetables just to tone up our arms. The guys would climb bars and do stuff like and pull themselves up, do pull-ups that way. They would do sit-ups. They would do squats in the house. They would use the chairs and they would use us. I remember my uncles sitting us as children on their back while he would do push-ups because we were weight. Do one, two, three of us at a time, four of us at a time. You don't have to have a gym membership to work out. If you learn to build a house, you can work out that way, or you can work out with the tools and the people in your home. You don't have to have an app either to fulfill your sexual needs. You can put the app away and learn how to actually communicate with a man or a woman and have real sexual relationships. So there are ways that we can heal ourselves, cure ourselves, provide what we need right with what we have. You can go get a tree limb and do lifts on that. You can go to the local playground and use the equipment. You can run around the track. You can run outside in your neighborhood. You don't have to have a gym membership to work on your body. You don't even have to have a surgery to lose weight. You can fast. You can pull away from the table, or just don't eat processed food. Eat lots of fruits and vegetables, raw living foods. If you just eat raw fruits for a week, you'll lose weight. Try it. Challenge yourself to only eating raw living fruits for 1 week and drink water, and you'll lose weight that way. Of course, I'm not a medical doctor. I have a PhD, a doctorate in philosophy and counseling and higher education. But what my point is, you don't have to have a lot of money or wait on the wealth transfer or the global currency reset and revaluation of currencies to live, to form relationships, to heal your core. Talk to your mom, heal that mother wound. Talk to your dad, even if he's passed on and transitioned. Talk to him like we used to do back in the day. They've told us we can't talk to our ancestors and called it demonization, but they'll worship the ancestor Jesus or Muhammad or reverence Buddha, but they won't tell you you can worship or reverence or talk to your daddy, David Pruitt. Why? Maybe if I talk to dad and pour libations to dad like we used to do and build an altar and give him the foods on the altar, or however my bloodline used to do it, I would get some answers to the questions. If you talk to your ancestors and the elders in your community, your spiritual advisors, and just the neighbor and the old lady next door and the old gentleman down the street who's sitting outside maybe smoking his pipe and nobody talks to him, if you talk to the people, starting with yourself and your higher self and the people around you in your family, you can get some of the answers for which you've been looking. You won't have to go to a computer. So what happens if we reject this in the computer from which I'm speaking? Even if you don't reject it 100% of the time, but most of the time, and build relationships with yourself and your family, you'll be more whole, you'll be more fulfilled and complete, and your family will be more nourished, and your community will thrive. Because right now, we're depending and waiting on elites, some of whom may have our best interests at heart, and many of whom do not. We're waiting on them and depending on them to control every segment of our society, our religious organizations, our educational facilities. They hiring us to work. Now that they're out of business, a lot of us are struggling when we could just be creating businesses within our own families and communities and barter with each other. You don't have to barter with money. You could, or you can barter with services. I apologize if you experience any type of interruption. My computer powered down, and I'll let that be my cue. My name is Dr. Kia Pruitt. I trust that I've said something to raise your vibrations and inspire you to create the most amazing, magnificent life that you desire and deserve. If you intend to pull away, you know, do so. But more importantly, focus on yourself and focus on your family. I love you. And that way, we'll build a great society and human population. Take care and make this a great day. Happy Sabbath.